Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for a pretty interesting Battlefront 2 video. Last week's Age of Rebellion update brought with it all types of content, but something we haven't yet had a chance to discuss on this channel are the 2 new reinforcements and all of the mini changes DICE has made to the old lineup, some of which were not officially announced. I decided to do a bunch of testing with the 2 new reinforcements as well as the changes to the various other reinforcements, like the Death Trooper who received a new blaster but also was hit with a really annoying nerf that for whatever reason wasn't announced to us, the ARC Trooper who has had his pistols completely reworked, and the Imperial Rocket Trooper who was also given a new blaster. Anyway, I wanted to do some testing to see exactly what the 2 new reinforcements were capable of, as well as to see how these changes to the already existing reinforcements affected them. Are they better, are they worse, or are they just as good as they've always been? The Ewok Hunter in particular has some really surprising stats, so let's not waste any time and just start out with him. If you go over on the Battlefront subreddit, or really anywhere Battlefront related, you are going to see a lot of people mentioning just how weak the Ewok Hunter feels, as their damage output is mostly very low, yet they also have just 250 health, which is significantly lower than any other unit in the Infiltrator class. Everyone else has at least 350. I'm not here to argue whether or not the Ewok Hunter is underpowered. I definitely think they're a bit overpriced battle point wise, but I am here to show you just how ridiculously strong their bow is in the right hands. As most of you guys are probably aware, the Ewok Hunter's bow has 2 firing modes. One is used by just clicking the right trigger without aiming, and the Ewok Hunter will auto-aim arrows at enemies that deal 49 damage per hit, which is pretty low considering the bow's rate of fire. However, by using the left trigger to aim, you can then charge up the bow to deal much higher damage, and it really is much higher damage. Unsurprisingly, the Ewok Hunter's bow will one-shot all 4 classes, even the heavy, 1 shot to the head, and they're all done. However, what's extremely surprising is that the Ewok Hunter can also one-shot every single reinforcement from full health. ISB Agent, 1 arrow to the head is all it takes. Rocket Trooper, just 1 arrow. The Death Trooper, one of the highest health reinforcements in Battlefront 2, 1 arrow to the dome and they are gone. Any reinforcement you could possibly encounter as an Ewok Hunter will die in 1 well-placed shot, no questions asked. It goes even further than that, as the Ewok Hunter's bow damage also makes extremely quick work of heroes. Almost every dark side villain will go down in just 2 shots, and that's not just the low health heroes like Boba Fett and Bossk. Count Dooku, Phasma, Kylo Ren, all of those higher than average health heroes, just 2 shots to the head and they are dead. The only 2 heroes Ewok can't kill in 2 shots are Vader and Grievous, and both of them will be left with just 2 HP remaining, so in the vast majority of situations, Grievous and Vader will also go down in just 2 hits unless they haven't taken any damage whatsoever before they encounter you. The charged Ewok bow deals exactly 399 damage per headshot, which is pretty incomparable to anything else in Battlefront 2. There aren't even any hero abilities that can deal that kind of damage in a single hit. Abilities that one-hit kill heavies are very rare. Meanwhile, we have the Ewok Hunter over here who is able to one-hit kill every reinforcement. With that said, actually hitting those headshots with the bow is way easier said than done. There aren't a ton of situations where you're going to have the time to just sit back and charge up your bow in complete peace, but in the right hands, in the right situation, their bow is capable of pretty devastating things. I was hoping the Ewok's Valiant Horn ability, which the description says will increase the damage of all of his attacks, would also increase the damage of their charged bow by even more, but for whatever reason, it doesn't affect their charged bow. The Valiant Horn only increases the damage of the auto-aim shots, bringing him from 49 damage to 58, and also his melee, bringing him from 40 to 60. It also doesn't improve their Wisties pouch damage, which deal a max of 118 damage with or without the Valiant Horn. The Ewok Hunter also has a few other stats that really surprised me, and I think they'll help you guys out if you're trying to use them without just instantly dying, which, again, is easier said than done in multiplayer. Their previously mentioned Valiant Horn ability also grants the player damage reduction, at least according to the game description, but like most ability descriptions in Battlefront 2, we aren't told how much damage reduction. I would have guessed something like 20 to 30%, but after testing it out, it turns out the Ewok is granted 50% damage reduction during the 15 seconds Valiant Horn is active, effectively bringing him up to 500 HP while you're using it. On top of that, the Ewok Hunter also has a passive ability that wasn't in the patch notes for some reason, and that passive ability is called Out of Sight. This allows the Ewok Hunter to increase their ability cooldown speeds while they are crouched. The question is, just how much faster do the abilities recharge when crouched? As it turns out, after some arcade testing, ability cooldowns are completely halved. This means you can have both your Wisties and Valiant Horn back every 20 seconds instead of 40, and your Hunter's Instincts back every 15 seconds instead of 30. This is huge and something everyone should really be taking advantage of. Really, the only change I think the Ewok needs is a price reduction. They definitely shouldn't be more expensive than reinforcements like the Droideka, for example, but for what they are, I think they're in a decent place. An Ewok shouldn't be the most powerful reinforcement anyway, and they have the potential to deal ridiculous damage in the right hands. We'll talk about the ISB agent later, but let's briefly talk about the new Death Trooper. They have had their blasters completely replaced, as the DLT-19 is gone and the E-11 is in their hands now. I think this was a sneaky way of balancing out the Death Troopers a bit. Their E-11D feels right, as it's what the Death Troopers should have been using from the beginning, but it does deal lower damage up close. I would say the Death Trooper's new blaster makes them slightly weaker in close range situations, but slightly better at range, as the DLT-19 definitely struggled more in range situations than the E-11D does. But overall, the Death Trooper does feel more balanced now. I will say this was a definite nerf to the Death Trooper's overload ability. It was actually pretty insane just how high the damage output was from the DLT-19 with overload. You could melt a hero from full health in just seconds up close. But the E-11D with overload doesn't deal even kind of close to that kind of damage. It's really not even comparable, but again, it holds up better over range. DICE did also change overload so you can run around unrestricted while it's active, which is a nice change, but definitely doesn't make up for the insane damage difference. However, something that wasn't mentioned in the patch notes was the nerf to the Death Trooper's Sonic Imploder, which no longer reveals enemies at all. I was playing around in co-op yesterday and thought something was up, and after testing it across multiple game modes, the Sonic Imploder no longer reveals any enemies to the Death Trooper, like, at all. I'm not sure if this is an intentional nerf or a random bug, but this is obviously a huge part of the Death Trooper's playstyle. I mean, the Sonic Imploder could reveal half the map with its crazy range, so I hope DICE reverts this change or just comes out and lets us know it's a bug that will be fixed. But at any rate, we are stuck with a non-working Sonic Imploder for at least 3 weeks until the March update. The ARC Trooper also received a pretty huge change, one that is proven to be really controversial. If you go on the Battlefront subreddit and search ARC Trooper, you will see post after post just discussing how DICE has ruined the ARC Trooper, and they are certainly a lot different now, although I don't know if I'd say ruined. The Power Blast ability is no longer an ability, it is now just attached to the left trigger as your secondary fire, so it can be used way more often, which is a good thing. The right trigger now controls both guns, so you can't control the fire rate anymore. You just hold down right trigger like any blaster and they both auto-fire at a predetermined fire rate, which to be honest is quite slow, and this is the biggest drawback here. You can swap between firing modes, one that is really slow but more accurate at medium-ish range, and one that is a bit faster but less accurate. The issue most people have is, and I think I would agree, is even the faster firing mode is much slower than you could fire before the update, which makes the ARC Trooper way weaker at close range, which was kind of their specialty. The ARC Trooper had that fun factor of being able to go up close and personal with a hero. If you knocked one off their feet with your shock trap and were good enough to really fire their pistols quickly into their head, you could take out a full health hero in seconds. Now that really isn't an option, as their maximum fire rate has been drastically reduced. Their current fire rate is maybe half of what you used to be able to do manually. With that said, the ARC Trooper is now better at mid-range and much easier to aim and control, and they can also use their secondary fire way more often. I don't feel super strongly about this change, as I've always been more of a Clone Commando and Clone Jet Trooper kind of guy, and I really don't use ARC Troopers very often anymore, but I do think these changes have kind of taken a bit away from what made the ARC Troopers so unique. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments down below, because this is probably the most controversial change from DICE in a long time. The Imperial Rocket Trooper was also given a brand new look and weapon, and I don't have much to say about this. Their new appearance is great, no complaints there, and the E-11 is so much better than their old blaster. And while the Imperial Rocket Trooper isn't the best aerial or anything now, it is definitely better than it was before. I know we haven't talked about the ISB agent, and honestly, that's because there really isn't all that much to test with them. For those of you that have used them, you likely know that everything from the ISB agent's abilities to their blaster is just kind of reused from other parts of the game. The ISB agent has very similar abilities to the Sith Trooper: reveal enemies, increase your sprint speed, and regenerate health. There are some differences, but none of their abilities are very unique. Their pistols, the RK3s, are just the default officer weapon. The most interesting thing about the ISB agent is their passive ability, which is called Close Combat, and will quickly regenerate part of the ISB agent's health if they defeat an enemy with a melee kick. It regenerates exactly 98 HP for every melee kill, no idea why that specific number, but it is a good portion of your health. The ISB agent only deals 65 damage per kick, which is pretty standard, so this isn't really something you can rely on to regenerate health on a consistent basis, but it is there if you need it. Other than that, the ISB agent is kind of unremarkable. I would be interested to know if they were rushed on her, because while the model is really well done, she looks great, her abilities and weapon are a bit unimaginative. Well guys, that is going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed it and could leave a like, I would greatly appreciate it, and if you are new around here, make sure you subscribe so you never miss a future upload. We just hit 200k and now it's the road to 250,000. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.